Amen. ¿Qué tan pronto se les olvida? How soon they forget. Eso es algo más que un dicho ingenioso. Es la verdad. That's not just a witty statement. It is reality. Los aficionados del deporte se olvidan de cómo fue tan exitoso su equipo el año pasado porque este año casi no ganan. The sports aficionados forget about how wonderful their team was last year because this year they're off to a poor start and aren't winning much. Los niños olvidan los sacrificios de sus padres que han hecho y siguen haciendo por ellos. Children oftentimes forget all the sacrifices that their parents have made and perhaps are still making for them. Los estudiantes se olvidan lo que los profesores les enseñaron. Students oftentimes forget what the professors taught them, and the list goes on and on and on. How quickly we forget. Y la lista se extiende. Que tan pronto se nos olvida. A menudo olvidamos nombres de personas, fechas, aniversarios. Eso sería trágico. Y lugares. Oftentimes, we forget things like names of people. We forget dates, birthdays, anniversaries, though that would be tragic for those who are married. And places. Okay? Algunas de estas cosas tal vez no tengan mucha importancia. Some of these things might not be, critical or that important. Sin embargo, olvidar a Dios después de todo lo que Él ha hecho es una tragedia. However, forgetting God after all that He has done in our stead, in our behalf, is indeed tragic. Porque el olvido conduce a la ingratitud, a la arrogancia, a la presunción, al orgullo y a la egolatría. Because at the end of the day, when we are forgetful, it leads to being ungrateful. It leads to being arrogant. It leads to being presumptuous. It leads to being prideful. And it leads to self-worship or self-idolatry. Graduados, nos regocijamos con ustedes en su realización en esta mañana. For you graduates, we rejoice with you in completing this wonderful accomplishment. Dios ha sido tan bueno con cada uno de ustedes. God has been so good to each and every one of you. Sin embargo, como se ha señalado, las personas son propensas a olvidar y así robar a Dios de su gloria. However, as I've just noted, people are prone to forget and therefore rob God of His due glory. Así que hoy queremos celebrar con ustedes mientras reconocemos la bondad de nuestro Dios. So today we do want to celebrate you, but as we do that, we want to recognize the goodness of our God so that we can take this time to remember and also to recognize. Así que esta mañana queremos recordar y también reconocer. Así que vaya conmigo al libro de Deuteronomio. If you're kind enough to go with me to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is the 5th book of the Bible. So Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Génesis, Éxodo, Levítico, Números y luego Deuteronomio. Y el pasaje que estaremos viendo en esta mañana se encuentra en Deuteronomio capítulo 2, versículo 7. So this morning we want to look at Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 7. And you'll see how fitting this is for your situation and for our situation. Deuteronomio 2:7, Deuteronomy 2:7. Sounds like pages are stopping, so I think that's a good spot. All right, seems like we're there. Deuteronomio 2:7. Dice así la palabra de Dios. Pues el Señor tu Dios te ha bendecido en todo lo que has hecho. Él ha conocido tu peregrinar a través de este inmenso desierto. Por 40 años el Señor tu Dios ha estado contigo y nada te ha faltado. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all that you have done. He has known your wanderings through this great wilderness. These 40 years the Lord your God has been with you, and you have not lacked a thing. You have not lacked anything. El libro de Deuteronomio es el último el libro escrito por Moisés. Deuteronomy is the fifth and last book written by Moses. Él ha estado con el pueblo de Israel desde que salieron de Egipto con la mano fuerte de Dios. So he's been leading his people ever since they left out of Egypt by the mighty hand of God. Moisés y el pueblo han visto cómo Dios en su amor ha mostrado favor aparte de ellos. Moses and the people have witnessed how God, by His love, by His grace, by His kindness, has extended so many good gifts to His people. ¿Por qué? Preguntarán algunos. Why? Some might question. ¿Será porque Israel era el pueblo más grande o el más obediente? Moisés diría enfáticamente, absolutamente no. Some might ask, why has God been so good to Israel? Is it because they're such a mighty nation? Is it because they're an obedient nation? And Moses would emphatically say, absolutely not. On the contrary, there was a time when they were not even a nation. God had to create them. Incluso fue un tiempo donde no existía la nación de Israel. A través de Abraham, él hizo una nación. Vemos a Abraham, luego Isaac, okay, que tuvo también a Esaú y a Jacob. So if you don't recall the story, Abraham was the father of Isaac, who then had Jacob and Esau, and then Jacob, the line through which God would create a nation, and then would name him a little bit later Israel. And that's where the nation was created, out of his 12 sons. Entonces vemos que de los hijos de Jacob, que después fue llamado Israel, a través de sus 12 hijos, Dios hizo la nación de Israel. ¿Okay? El Señor, dice la palabra, el Señor no puso su amor en vosotros, ni os escogió por ser vosotros más numerosos que otro pueblo, pues eras el más pequeño de todos los pueblos. In fact, the Bible tells us that God did not choose them because they were a mighty nation. In fact, they were one of the smallest nations early on. Y definitivamente porque no eran obedientes. And definitely not because they were obedient. On many occasions, they turned their back on God. They were a stiff-necked, a rebellious people. Estas personas, esta nación, en muchas ocasiones fue rebelde. Volteó su espalda hacia Dios. Pero Dios, en su gracia, en su misericordia, siguió guiando y bendiciendo a esta nación. And yet, with all that, God continued to help and to bless this nation. Entonces, quiero que vean esto. Que como graduados y como hijos de Dios, usted y yo debemos de reconocer y también a recordar lo que Dios ha hecho por todas las bendiciones de Dios. So the reason why we should remember and recognize this morning, you graduates, but all of us really, we should remember and recognize because God has blessed us so much, because of all the blessings of God. Did you catch that first part of the verse there? El Señor te ha bendecido en todo lo que has hecho. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all that you have done. El favor, la bendición de Dios es inexplicable, hermanos. Porque si somos honestos, no la merecemos. The favor, the blessings of God are inexplicable. Because if we're honest with ourselves, we do not deserve them. Él es el que se complace en bendecir a sus hijos. Como algunos de nuestros hijos que muchas veces son desobedientes, que son rebeldes, no merecen el amor, el favor de sus padres, pero ¿sabe qué? Nos complace darles beneficios, darles bendiciones a ellos. A pesar de que rebeldes son, los amamos y queremos bendecir sus vidas. As any good parent would know, even when our children are rebellious, even when they are disobedient, every single thing within us wants to bless them. Sure, you'll have your moments where you may become upset, but by and large, you typically want to bless them. You typically want to help them. You typically want to shower them with good gifts because after all, they are your children. And so we are God's children, and He is pleased to extend His love and His favor toward us. Note cómo Dios ha demostrado su favor, su bendición hacia cada uno de nosotros. Notice how God has shown us His favor and His blessings toward us. Cuando nosotros somos reconocidos, a pesar de que se encuentren personas más capacitadas que nosotros. When we are recognized, when we are hired, when people recognize us, even when there are other people that are more qualified than us. And trust me, I have been the recipient of God's blessings way too many times. I thank Him often because I know for a fact that I have been the beneficiary of God's blessings on many occasions. I still recall when the College of Biblical Studies asked me to come on board and teach full-time for them. And there were a number of other individuals who were applying for that same position, had extensive resumes, had already earned PhDs, doctorates, and God was pleased to open the door for me to come in. It's inexplicable, apart from the blessings and the grace of God. Todavía recuerdo cuando el Colegio de Estudios Bíblicos me pidió que viniera y fuera profesor de Biblia y Teología tiempo completo. Y para entonces habían varios candidatos que tenían ya mucha experiencia y también ya habían logrado sus doctorados en filosofía. Y en vez de contratar a alguno de ellos, el colegio decidió contratarme a mí. Y yo reconozco que eso fue simplemente por la gracia, por la bondad, por el favor de Dios. Yo no lo merecía. I was undeserving of that, but yet God was pleased. Cuando lo que ponemos por obra sale bien, a pesar que habían dudas. When we set on a journey and what we do turns out well, even though there were many doubts along the way, that is because the blessing, the favor, the hand of God was in it. Had He not blessed it, it would not have come out well. Cuando recibimos victoria, aunque tal vez pensábamos ser derrotados. When we obtain a victory, when we thought we would be defeated, again, had the hand of the Lord not been upon it, more than likely we would have suffered defeat. Y cuando somos aceptados, a pesar de nuestros muchos defectos. And when we are accepted, not just by God, but by family, by friends, by colleagues, by loved ones, despite our many deficiencies. Pastor, don't help so much. If we're honest with ourselves, we know we have a host of deficiencies. And yet people will accept us just the way we are. You know what that's called? The blessing, the favor, the goodness of God upon us. Because people see us and accept us and love us just the way we are. That is all because of God's grace and favor upon us. Todo eso es por la mano de Dios sobre nosotros, su favor sobre cada uno de nosotros. Ustedes, graduados, Dios ha demostrado su presencia, su favor, sus bendiciones sobre cada uno de ustedes al cumplir esta meta. For you graduates, God has definitely blessed you, has extended His favor, His hand upon you, so that you are now a person who has completed that task, who has received their degree. ¿Y sabe cómo lo sé? Porque yo he sido estudiante por muchos, muchos años y aún lo soy. And you know how I know that you've been blessed tremendously? Because I have been a student and still am a student, okay, for many, many, many years. Yo sé que Dios bendijo sus monografías. I know for a fact that God blessed your papers. Because otherwise, them D's, not in here, them B's may have been C's or D's. But if we're honest, those D's might have been F's. Sabemos, ¿verdad? Que Dios nos dio favor, nos bendijo en nuestras monografías, para que esas B's no serían C's o esas D's no serían F's. Okay? Dios bendijo nuestras presentaciones. God blessed our presentations. Yo sé, porque también soy profesor, yo sé que a veces lo hicieron a la última hora. I know because I'm a professor myself and I know it happens. You did this at the last minute. 2, 3 in the morning you were finishing up that project, okay? And class is at 7. So I know for a fact that God blessed those presentations. So everything stayed on just as long as the professor could grade it. And after it was graded, it just collapsed. It was so bad. Okay. But God blessed those presentations that needed to be turned in. Dios bendijo esos exámenes. God blessed those exams. Once again, I too know this from experience. You really should have had a 50, a 55, or a 60, but there was a huge curve given to the entire class. I remember giving a class a 20-point curve. A 20-point curve. That was probably one of my lowest points. Was it my bad teaching, or were they just, not paying attention or didn't study? Entonces, sabemos que en ocasiones esos 80 debían ser 60, esos 50 o 70 debían ser 50. Pero Dios bendijo sus exámenes para que al fin del día usted pudiera recibir las calificaciones adecuadas para poder seguir progresando en sus estudios. And so God blessed every single aspect of your teaching, of your learning, so that you could continue to make forward progress, good progress going forward. Y independiente de cuánto les tomó para completar su grado, ustedes están aquí celebrando la bondad de Dios. And independent of how long it took you to receive your degree, here you are today by God's grace in victory. Ahora, María, te has graduado de la universidad. Alicia y Belinda se han graduado, han cumplido sus maestrías, sus estudios avanzados. Dios ha sido tan bueno con ustedes. So Maria is now a college graduate, which, is a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment. And Alicia and Belinda also completed their master's degree. Obviously advanced studies, and so we're so thankful for you. But you would not be here if not for the mighty hand and the good and gracious hand of God. Because many, I assure you, began that course with you, but for a number of reasons did not finish the course. Y sabemos que muchos empezaron ese peregrinaje, ese curso, pero no todos lo cumplieron, no todos lo realizaron. Pero no solo los graduados tienen razón por qué celebrar a Dios y adorar a Dios y reconocer a Dios por su bondad y sus bendiciones. Como cristianos, somos personas verdaderamente bendecidos. But not just the graduates have reason to remember and recognize today. All of us who have placed our faith in Jesus Christ as our Savior and are now children of God are truly blessed. Tenemos una salvación que nunca puede ser anulada. We have a salvation that can never be reneged upon because He promised eternal salvation, not temporal salvation. Tenemos una liberación que nunca puede ser superada. We have a deliverance that can never be exceeded. The work of Jesus Christ on the cross is plenty. It is finished, He said. Tenemos una herencia que nunca puede ser perdida. We have an inheritance, an inheritance that can never be lost. Jesus said, I go and prepare a place for you. He spoke with certainty. I'm going, and what purpose? To prepare a place for you, so that where I am, you too will be. Él habló con una certidumbre que allí donde yo estoy, ustedes también estarán. Esa es una herencia que nos pertenece a cada uno de nosotros, que hemos depositado nuestra fe en Jesucristo como único y suficiente Salvador. So that inheritance that awaits us in our Father's house, okay, is an inheritance that cannot be lost. Tenemos una gracia que jamás puede ser limitada. We have a grace that has been given to us that can never, okay, be exceeded. There are no limits to that grace. Nothing that we do is outside the bounds of grace, because God's grace covers it all. Now, that's not a reason to live any which way. On the contrary, that should create in us more humility, obedience, and thanksgiving. Eso no debe crear en nosotros una vida irresponsable. Lo contrario, debe crear en nosotros una vida humilde, una vida responsable, una vida agradecida. Y tenemos una esperanza que nunca puede ser decepcionada. You and I have a hope that can never be disillusioned. That blessed hope that we have to one day be in the very presence of our Savior. To worship Him forevermore for all of His good gifts, starting off with His greatest gift of salvation. Ese día que estaremos en su presencia por una eternidad y le daremos gracias y le adoraremos por cada una de sus bendiciones, pero principalmente por la bendición de nuestra salvación eterna. See, we have so much to thank Him for and recognize Him for, because we are a blessed people. La segunda parte dice que se debe reconocer a Dios porque Él ha protegido o ha cuidado a sus hijos por la protección de Dios. So for the protection of God, we ought to remember and recognize. He has known your wanderings. He didn't just know about them. He was with them the whole way, guided them, and protected them the entire way. He didn't just sit at a distance and look and say, you know, they're on their own now. I did my job, delivered them from Egypt. There you go. No, Dios no se sentó a una distancia y dijo, ¿sabes qué? Yo ya hice mi obra ya. Los liberé de Egipto, ahora a solas, a ver cómo se la ven. No, you know why I know this? Because the Bible tells us that in the day, God was with them by a pillar of cloud over them, protecting them from the scorching heat of the desert days. And by night, there was a pillar of fire over them to protect them from the cold desert nights. So no, he did not sit at a distance. He was very much present and protecting them every step of the way. Sabemos que una nube que estuvo sobre ellos día tras día durante el día para protegerlos del sol. En la noche, okay, una llama de fuego que los protegía del frío que hacía en el desierto en las noches. Entonces Dios no solo supo, no solo conoció, sino que Él los protegió a través de ese peregrinaje. So God protected them. But even before that, He had begun the work of protecting them. As Pharaoh was in hot pursuit of them, God opened the Red Sea so that God's people could walk, I love this part of the scriptures, walk through not damp ground, not through muddy ground, but through dry land. Didn't even get their feet wet. That's how good God is. Okay? Didn't even get it muddy. That's how good God is. Entonces, la palabra dice que en lo que el faraón venía tras ellos, él partió el mar rojo y su pueblo no pasó por agua húmeda o por tierra húmeda, ni por un pozo, no, por tierra seca, nos dice la palabra de Dios. Y a nomás que terminó el pueblo de Israel y entró Egipto, Dios cerró el mar y destruyó a Faraón y su ejército. And so when God's people had crossed the Red Sea and Pharaoh sought to enter, God closed up or opened up, depending on how you want to see it, the Red Sea once again, and now crushed Pharaoh and his mighty army, his chariots. And so God was protecting His people. When other nations sought to come against Israel, more powerful than Israel, more prepared than Israel, God protected them from them and gave them the victory. Cuando las demás naciones vinieron en contra de Israel, naciones que estaban más o mejor equipadas para entrar en guerra, Dios los protegió y les dio la victoria. Por 38 años que vagabundeaban en el desierto, Dios los protegió. For those 38 years or 40 years that they were in the desert, God protected them throughout this journey. Porque Dios fue bueno con cada uno de ellos. Because God was good with each and every one of them. See, they could be tempted. Here they are at Moab, just overlooking Canaan, because they're about to enter into the land of Canaan. And they could easily forget all the blessings that God gave them. They could easily forget all the protection that God gave them. And so Moses is saying, don't do that. Because in doing so, you will be worshiping yourselves rather than worshiping the God who gave you these blessings and who gave you this protection. So don't do that. Graduados, ¿cuántas veces Dios los protegió a cada uno de ustedes? How many times did God protect you through this journey that you were on? Dios les protegió de alguna enfermedad debilitante para que cumplieras la tarea. God kept you, He spared you, He protected you from some debilitating disease so that you would be able to complete the task. We take these things for granted at times. We just assume that we're just going to have good health until we don't have good health. Then we realize, oh yeah, this is not guaranteed to any one of us. Y entonces reconocemos que la salud no es garantizada a ninguno de nosotros. Pero Dios los protegió a cada uno de ustedes para que pudieran cumplir la tarea. Dios les protegió de las tentaciones que tuvieron a lo largo de su estudio. God protected you from those temptations that came along the way during your course of study. Listen, I know there was fear at times. Okay? I know that there was doubt at times. And I know that perhaps there were some times when you wanted just to throw in the towel. Forget it. I'm done. Is it worth it? I know. Yet God protected you from acting upon those temptations so that He gave you victory over them and helped you realize that this is just a moment in time. And He's got you. Okay? He's going to see you through. But you better believe that those temptations were there. Dios les protegió de hábitos destructivos. God protected you from destructive habits. La pereza, laziness, right? Now, I know, somewhere along the way, you binged watched something, okay? But as a whole, this wasn't what you did throughout the course of your study, or you wouldn't be here now, okay? La diversión, okay? That you didn't spend the bulk of your time having pleasure and going out and neglecting the work that you knew was due. Dios te protegió de entretener malas influencias que no serían de ayuda para ti en el curso de esta tarea. God protected you from entertaining bad influences that would ultimately keep you from completing the task that was before you. See, God was the one protecting you along the way. Los primeros indios americanos tenían una práctica singular en la formación de jóvenes valientes. So the native Indians had a practice in the formation of the youth to young adults in their community. En la noche del 13º cumpleaños de un niño, después de aprender la caza, la exploración y la pesca, lo sometían a una prueba final. So on the night of their 13th birthday, after they had learned how to fish, explore, how they had learned how to catch an animal, kill animals, okay, for their survival, they would have one final challenge for them. Era colocado en un bosque denso a pasar toda la noche solo. They would place him in the forest, in the woods, to spend an entire night there. Hasta entonces, nunca había estado lejos de la seguridad de la familia y la tribu. Up to that point, the child had never been away from his family or his tribe. Pero en esta noche, le vendaban los ojos y lo llevaban a varias millas de distancia. But on that occasion, on that night, they would cover his eyes and they would take him at a distance of a few miles away from the community. Cuando se quitó la venda, él estaba en medio de un espeso bosque y estaba aterrorizado. And so when he took his blindfold off, he found himself in the middle of the woods. And as you can imagine, was utterly terrified. Cada vez que una rama se quebraba, visualizaba a un animal salvaje listo para saltar. Every time he heard the crackling of wood or some branch, he thought it was some wild beast of an animal seeking to pounce. Después de lo que parecía una eternidad, los primeros rayos del sol entraron en el interior de la selva. And for what it seemed like an eternity, at last, he began to see a ray of light from the sun coming in to the forest. Mirando a su alrededor, el niño vio las flores, los árboles y el esquema del camino. And so as the light began to shine upon him, he could see now all around him flowers, trees, and even a path that made its way into where he was at. A continuación, para su asombro, vio la figura de un hombre parado a pocos pies de distancia, armado con un arco y una flecha. Era su padre. Él había estado ahí toda la noche. Así es con nuestro Padre Celestial. Él nos protege aún cuando nosotros no lo pensamos o cuando nos sentimos más vulnerables. You see, just a few feet away, his father was there, okay, to protect him. He had been there the whole time. And that's how it is with our Heavenly Father. He is always there with us and for us, even when we don't even expect it, even when we don't recognize it, even when we don't feel Him present. That young man did not feel his father present, but he was. Ese joven no sintió a su padre estar ahí, pero allí estaba. En la última parte de este versículo, note lo que dice. Y Dios, Señor tu Dios, ha estado contigo y nada te ha faltado. And the Lord your God has been with you, and you have lacked nothing. Entonces le damos gracias a Dios, le reconocemos por las bendiciones, por la protección y también por sus provisiones. So we remember and recognize Him because of His blessings, lavish blessings upon us, because of His protection over us, and because of His provisions for us. Los israelitas no les faltó nada durante su peregrinaje en el desierto. They lacked nothing in the desert. Dios no solo les dio lo que necesitaban, pero lo hizo de una manera sobrenatural. God not only gave them what they needed, but He did it in a supernatural way. Sus calzados no desgastaron durante esos años en la arena del desierto. Their sandals did not wear out during this wandering in the desert. Okay. Y Dios proveyó para su sed, para su hambre, día tras día. God provided for their thirst. He provided for their hunger day in and day out. No solo eso, sino que también les dio la ley para que a través de la ley pudiera haber un cuidado mutuo. And He also gave them the law. And the law was instituted so that there would be mutual care among the community. Para que también pudieran cuidar el bienestar de las viudas, los huérfanos, los pobres y aún los extranjeros. God gave them this law so that there would be mutual care, even so that they could take care of the least among them, the widows, the orphans, the poor, and the strangers. You know when there was little provision in the land? When people were exploiting one another, but it was not because God had not provided. Sound familiar? That's the very same problem that we experience both here and in other countries where there is exploitation, where there is abuse. It is not because God has not provided. It is because there is abuse and exploitation of those resources. God has always provided. God will always provide for His own. Sería absolutamente absurdo no reconocer al Señor por su provisión espléndida durante los vagabundeos en el desierto. It would be foolish, utterly foolish, for the Jews not to recognize God's provision throughout the wandering during the desert. Provided manna, provided quail, provided water, day in and day out. Nosotros, hermanos, no olvidemos las provisiones maravillosas que Dios ha hecho por nosotros. Let us not forget the amazing provisions that God has made on our behalf. Y aún tenemos la promesa. El apóstol Pablo, escribiéndole a los filipenses, les dijo con toda certeza, mi Dios proveerá, suplirá todas vuestras necesidades conforme a sus riquezas en gloria en Cristo Jesús. The Apostle Paul, while in house arrest, having had all of his needs met, says to the Philippians, I am fully convinced that my God will supply all of my needs, your needs, our needs, according to His riches in glory, in Christ Jesus. Listen, God is rich. in love, in grace, in mercy, and resources. He does own the cattle on 1,000 Hill after all. All you need to do is sell one of them, and we're set. Dios es rico en amor, bondad, misericordia, pero también en recursos. Él proveerá y ha provisto por cada una de nuestras necesidades. Graduados, Dios ha sido fiel con cada una de vuestras necesidades. You graduates, God has been gracious in providing for all of your needs. Dios proveyó los recursos necesarios para completar cada uno de sus cursos. God provided the necessary resources so that you can complete every one of those courses. God provided. Okay? Because guess what? No school that I know is just giving free money. You still got to pay something. Okay? Either now or later, you're going to pay. Okay? But God provided the resources so that you could continue to move forward in your coursework. Dios proveyó el tiempo necesario para completar cada uno de sus recursos. God provided the time that you needed, the necessary time to fulfill your coursework. Okay? Some of us need more time than others because we're a little slow getting there, right? But that's all right. The Lord knows what we need. And so He will give us according to our needs. See? And so God provided all the necessary time that you needed so that you could finish up that coursework. And sometimes it was because of help you had, and sometimes it was despite the help. But God provided. Dios proveyó ese tiempo necesario para completar los cursos. Dios proveyó la capacidad intelectual para completar cada uno de sus cursos. God provided the intellectual capacity that you needed to complete your coursework. Okay? Again, whether that's a D or an A, God provided the intellectual capacity that you needed to get the passing grades in order to keep moving forward. That is the goodness, the grace, the provision of God. Quiero concluir con esto. Hace algún tiempo, un misionero llamado Alan Gardner sufrió un accidente y se ahogó. Some time ago, a missionary by the name of Alan Gardner suffered an accident, a boating accident, and was drowned. Cuando su cuerpo fue encontrado cerca de su barco volcado a lo largo de la costa del mar, su diario también fue descubierto. So once he was discovered, he was found, his ship had overturned, his boat had overturned. And what they also found with him was also his diary that was with him. Contó repetidas veces de hambre, privación, persecución y sufrimiento que había experimentado. His entries in his journal communicated of privation, it communicated of suffering, it spoke of hungering on occasions that he had experienced throughout his life. Pero note lo que escribió en su última entrada en su libro. But note what he wrote in his very last entry in his journal. Estoy abrumado con un sentimiento de la bondad de Dios. Yet his very last entry was, I am overwhelmed with the sense of the goodness of God. Overwhelmed with the sense of the goodness of God. Because He will continually bless, protect, and also provide for us. And so we need to make sure that we recognize Him because of His goodness towards us. Él siempre nos bendecirá. Él siempre proveerá. Y Él siempre protegerá hasta que terminemos nuestro curso Y por eso es importante de recordar y reconocer a aquel que nos ayudó. So we must both remember and recognize the one who has helped us so. Okay? Vamos a orar. Let's pray. Padre, damos gracias por este aliento, Señor, y exhortación a nuestra comunidad. Gracias por nuestros graduados. Los amamos